our nation's colors. Now will you please welcome Jeff Hamilton of Motor Racing Outreach as he delivers today's invocation.
Let's pray together. Dear Heavenly Father, in these days filled with such uncertainty, we are grateful that you do not change, that you're the same yesterday, today, and forever. So we are grateful for hope and for grace. Help us to live then with an unshakable faith. We ask for your blessing on this event and on all involved, protect the drivers and teams, as well as our troops around the world. For these things and for so much more, we are thankful. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and welcome three-time Grammy Award nominee Little Big Town performing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Coming up, the crew chief's checklist. Will Kyle Busch complete the three-race sweep? It's never happened before. Sub 500. There's Jimmy Johnson from El Cajon near San Diego, beginning his quest here, or continuing for maybe a fourth straight NASCAR championship. And the red-hot driver of the weekend, Kyle Busch, could make history, winning the Truck Series nationwide. And this race, we'll be watching him closely today. Jeff Hammond, Chris Myers from the Hollywood Hotel, watching the race with you as we get ready to start out here. What's your Verizon Championship Racing checklist?
Well, Chris, when you take a look at this particular racetrack, I think you've got to understand that it's such a wide racetrack that one of the things you have to do is you've got to search around and find the right groove that works for you. Whether it's down on the bottom or it's running around the top, it doesn't matter. This racetrack allows you to do that. The second thing is you got to take care of this engine. 500-mile marathon, we've already kind of touched on it. It can be very hard on the valve train. You need to make sure that you don't miss any gears and kind of keep an eye on your gauges. Don't want to overheat the engine. Then last but not least, avoid pit road mistakes. We saw what happened to Dale Jr. last weekend. It took him totally out of the Daytona 500 because he was forced to try to drive over his head to get back on the lead lap, got himself in trouble. Here you cannot do the same thing. You've got to be smarter than beat yourself on pit road.
A couple of headline stories we've talked about, but Kyle Busch with a chance at history. I mean, does a guy ever get too worn out from racing as he has through the course of the weekend, even though the adrenaline rush is here today?
Yesterday, I think, is going to be a good test for that because of the fact we ran not only the truck race earlier that day at 12 o'clock, we was followed up by the nationwide race. So we're going to find out whether or not this kind of wear and tear, not to mention all the practice sessions that went along with it for the Sprint Cup Series. I don't believe it's going to affect this young man, but what might affect this young man is Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin, Jeff Gordon. They were all better than he was in both practices, so they may be the ones who keep him from making this happen.
Yeah, the name you didn't mention, Matt Kenseth, who, of course, won last week, and he said he's ready to go. He said he's not tired. He's had an active week. What about, and Roush Fenway cars have run well on this track.
They have run well, but I think the key for him right now is just get a solid finish and kind of keep building on the points. You know, Chris, I mean, I just think it's all about the numbers. You got to make them happen. Daytona's important, but it's all about the numbers.
You always go through the garage. Crew chief's talking about a numbers game already this early.
Yeah, the numbers right now are kind of like what I said. Daytona #1, #5 has to be the 5 races that keep you in the top 35 as far as being able to make all the races After that, number 26, that's when the cutoff for the chase is, and then obviously number 10 once you get in the chase. But right now, number 5 is what's important.
You know, West Coast Racing, we talked about the number of drivers from California. By the way, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club was actually formed here in Fontana in 1948. So a great style of motorsports, racing and fans that are here. And we talk about the number of drivers for this kind of a homecoming, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. How about the style of driving from a region of the country, or now because of tracks and everybody being based in North Carolina, it pretty much evens out?
Yeah, I think it pretty much evens out. But I think people who come from California, I think that Jeff Gordon kind of set the trend. We found out that guys from California can drive, and it's not necessarily, you know, determined by whether you're good on a video game or not. I believe he came into the series and proved his worth, and we started looking at what they had to offer here. And you bring guys like Jimmy Johnson in. He came through the basically off-road series through Nationwide to get to where he is today. He's proven that boys from California can't get it done.
And we're going to get the command here in just a moment. We talked about how some of the guys have run well this weekend here, as Jimmy Johnson certainly one of those. Casey Kane, Casey Mears, Jeff Burton, they've kind of had a slow weekend. Cars aren't running, or at least it appears not the way they would like heading into this race.
No, they've got some work to do, but this is what it's all about. You can work on this race car, and maybe the track, and you're driving along, you may pick up something, Bill, and make it work. Now, one thing I was noticing right there on the 48 car, Chad Knaus was going over the pit road map, trying to make sure he understands, hey, here are the guys that are around you. This is what we need to think about doing. This is where you can kind of hustle in. This is where you got to be careful, not get caught speeding on pit road. There he is. I think all of this right here is so important. To the last minute, they are really working on fine-tuning this game plan today to make it happen. He's got a fast race car, and they're not going to make any mistakes on pit road.
Like a coach going over the game plan with his quarterback. You would think, Jeff, they're the longest tenured team. I mean, working together in great success, but that attention to detail, they're not taking anything for granted.
You got it. That's the main thing. You don't take anything for granted. Just because you're the defending champion does not mean automatically they're going to pull over for you or turn a blind eye when you make a mistake on pit road. That man's doing a great job right now.
All right. There is a doctor in the house as we head trackside. Hugh Lowry, he's not a real doctor. He plays one on TV.
Race fans, it is time for the most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome back the star of the Fox television series House and the DreamWorks animated film Monsters vs. Aliens, opening March 27th, your Grand Marshal, Hugh Laurie.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Monsters versus Aliens.
Sounds like me versus you.
Sounds like us two in the Hollywood Hotel. We're going to enjoy the race. We hope you stick with us today as we come to you from the Auto Club Speedway east of Los Angeles in Fontana, California, and getting ready to race. The California Adventure to take us through it. Our guys who do all season long, and they do a good job. Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip, Mike Joy, yes?
The Three Amigos.
The Three Amigos.
That's right.
So ready to go.
I saw that movie. It had a happy ending, but I don't think it's us.
Hey, this is not in it. This is Ishtar down here, okay?
The speeds at this racetrack, Darrell, are very similar to Daytona, where we started the season, but the racetrack is very different. How does this track drive differently than Daytona?
Well, at Daytona, you can enter the turns at 190 miles an hour, and it feels fairly comfortable because you've got 31 degrees of banking to catch you, something to lean on. Here, you're going a good 20 miles an hour faster into a relatively flat turn, 14 degrees. Car does not want to stick, does not want to turn. Takes a lot of willpower on the driver's part to will it through the turn. Car wants to go straight, you want to go left. There's a big battle going on inside that car every lap.
Roush Fenway's had a lot of success here. Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Busch has won everything so far this weekend. Who are we leaving out, Larry? You know, dark horse picks for the Oscar. How about a dark horse for today?
Well, there's no question. The obvious choice is Jimmy Johnson, the 48 car. You know, they've dominated both the practice sessions. Yeah, you look at the Roush Fenway group. They got their two favorites, Matt Kenseth, then Carl Edwards starting about mid-pack. But when I watched practice yesterday, Mike, I don't think some drivers that we've seen a lot of talk about is two of the Roush Fenway drivers starting near the front of the pack. I think we've got Greg Biffle up there and Jamie McMurray. They looked awfully good. But we always have comers and goers here at this 500-mile race because 500 miles versus qualifying is a lot different. A guy I'm going to be watching, he was fast on Friday in qualifying, had to change that engine. He'll be at the rear of the field. I think Brian Vickers in that 83 car, he's going going to be a guy that's going to be going to the front.
All right, let's have a look at the starting lineup for today's Auto Club 500. Joe Nemechek made the show, missed it in Daytona. He will start 43rd in his unsponsored Toyota. Michael Waltrip, starting at the rear, goes to the rear, along with Jeff Burton, John Andretti, Jeremy Mayfield in the show 2 weeks in a row. David Stremme back there with Travis Kvapil in row 19. Scott Riggs in the race again, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. qualified there 35th, goes to the back. Rookie Joey Logano and Daytona pole sitter Martin Truex. David Gilliland from Riverside, California, replacing Mike Wallace in the 71. Eric Almirola. Dave Blaney is back behind the wheel, and there's Casey Mears. Ryan Newman and Paul Menard in the 14th row. Sam Hornish Jr., Carl Edwards, first of the Roush-Coutiers in the lineup. Let's let this cycle through and have Darrell get on the horn.
Jamie Mack, it's a DW Fox Sports booth. You got a copy there, buddy?
DW, I'm clear.
Jamie, good news. You're on the pole, buddy. What a surprise. What's the view like?
Well, it's gonna be a good one. 83 gets out of the way. Crown Royal Ford Fusion has been good since we unloaded. Donnie and Derek and all the guys on our team have given me a really good car. So we'll see what we can get here at the beginning, and hopefully we fight for the win at the end.
Roger that, buddy. You had a great car last week at Daytona. Got into some trouble there in the big wreck. You got a car that good today?
You know, our car is equal to Daytona for sure. We're pretty good on new tires, and it seemed to stay underneath us pretty good. So hopefully make the right adjustments and put ourselves in a position at the end to be able to fight for the win today.
Well, I don't have to tell you, it would be cool if you could win today. Good luck, buddy.
Thanks, DW.
Because McMurray started third with Vickers going to the rear, the inside lane moves up one. That will put him to the pole when we get the green. Make it a great race day with a perfect balance of flavor and refreshment with Budweiser, the great American lager. Let's get down to pit road for late breaking stories, beginning with the executive editor of Speedway Illustrated, Dick Berggren.
Well, Jeff Gordon has not won a point-paying Sprint Cup race in over a year, but a week and a half ago at Daytona, he won his qualifying race, and he is ever so good here at the Auto Club Speedway. Led more laps than any other driver in this series here, and he has won here 3 times. Fast in practice, he starts 6th. Things are looking good for Jeff Gordon. Let's go to Matt Yoakum.
Dick, Dale Earnhardt Jr. hopes that history doesn't repeat itself, as Fontana, California has been the site of some of his biggest hits in hardest luck. In fact, the past 2 years in this event, he's finished 40th. Tony Eury Jr.'s cousin and crew chief told me it's been a work in progress all weekend trying to get the feel that Jr.'s looking for in that 88 car. He pulled a lot of the Hendrick knowledge. Feels like they've made some good decisions for today, but now throw in another variable, the weather. It's overcast and about 15 degrees cooler than it was during final practice. Steve Burns.
Well, Matt, Greg Biffle won this race in 2005. Before that race, I asked him about his car. He said it was ridiculously fast. I asked him just moments ago before he got in how this car was. Is it ridiculously fast? He said, no, this one's bad fast. Krista.
Well, a lot has been made about Kyle Busch going for history, trying to win 3 in a weekend. You know, Kyle, along with the driver of the number 5 car, Mark Martin, have won 3 races, all different series at this track. The last time Mark Martin won in a Cup car, it was 1998. And on an Academy Award weekend, he's kind of like Mickey Rourke, perhaps. Mickey Rourke coming back after 14 years. Mark Martin coming back out of retirement to try to win a championship. He's never won an Oscar. He's been nominated several times.
Let's take a look at our FedEx understanding the race from a crew chief's perspective. The trends of the pattern of the last 8 spring races here. On the average, 7 cautions. The least we had was 5 in 2002. The most we've had was 12 last year fighting a wet racetrack. On the average, the first caution comes out about lap 16, but in 2001, we did go all the way to lap 60. The longest green flag run, 81 laps on the average. That's almost 2 full runs on a tank of Sunoco race fuel. And the last caution on the average comes out about lap 224, roughly 25 laps to go.
That's good stuff, Larry. I like that.
Well, let's see if it comes into play, DW.
Check it out.
And I liked your Dale Jr. interview. He was very forthcoming, and I think this is probably the first week that he's ever been in a position of being under the microscope for something that happened on the racetrack that wasn't positive, and I liked his explanation.
I did too. His father taught him well. He's an honest man.
5 drivers will go to the rear. If you followed our practice coverage on Speed, you heard Dale Jr. talking about a questionable transmission that popped out a gear on him not once but twice. They changed it. 3 engine changes, and Reed Sorensen crashed and went to a backup car.
There you saw pit road speed 55 miles per hour, and the fuel window 40 to 44 laps.
Jeff Gordon told us he has done an episode of Sesame Street.
Yeah.
They have worms, and he goes, wiggly, wiggly, wiggly. Let's go worm racing, boys.
Yeah.
Well,
we're
that's
not
the imitation, but there's only one real thing.
We're not going to do that today.
Well, let's get to it then.
Well, DW, we're on the West Coast. It's Oscar night. It's almost prime time on the East Coast. Let's get this West Coast party started. Reach up there and pull those belts tight one more time. And the green flag's out. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys.
Angie Harmon waved the green flag, and here they come. Jimmy Johnson won both practice sessions. He wasted no time in gaining command of this race.
Boy, Angie Harmon, she is excited. I know how she feels. Those cars going under you that first time by, it is exhilarating.
But Mike, Jimmy Johnson in the 48 team, not a great speed weeks, finished 31st, never led a lap. Now they have 5 bonus points for leading that lap.
Look at him right here, 3 wide. Everybody wants a piece of real estate and wants to move up early.
Well, now is when your car is going to handle its very, very best. Got good tires, track's got a lot of grip, pass them while you can.
But look at that right there, 3 and 4 wide. There's only 14 degrees of banking. That's the great thing about this 2-mile racetrack. And look at her, she's still pumped up.
Yeah, and it's 75 feet wide, Larry, and they're going to want to move that wall out another 10 feet if they can.
Threatening skies, an LA haze held up by the mountains off to our north, and a low ceiling, heavy clouds, and a drop or 2 of sprinkles on the property.
It's really just right. It's a perfect forecast. I like it that way.
Yeah, so much for sunny Southern California.
Oh, yeah. No, this is great racing weather right here.
Look at that, 4 abreast, plenty of room.
Oh, but the coming together off the turns, that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah, 3 and 4 wide will work in the corner. It's like running into a funnel on the exit of the corner. I tell you what, that 18 car, he is picking them up and laying them down. Started back in the 10th position. He's halfway to the front, already cracked the top 5.
Well, he's got a heck of advantage on these guys. He's already run like 400 miles.
Jimmy Johnson out to a 1-second lead on Jamie McMurray, Jeff Gordon, Kurt and Kyle Busch, and Greg Biffle.
And by the way, this is the furthest behind he's been in 2 days.
Right. Second place. Oh, brother, where art thou? Move over. Excuse me, 4th place. Kurt holding off Kyle Busch. Next week, NASCAR on Fox goes to their hometown, Las Vegas.
I'd be pretty encouraged if I was Roger Penske and the Penske group with the way Kurt's running right now. This may be as good a run as I've seen them have on a track this size in maybe a year, Larry. It's been a while.
Well, and I think they struggled with this car we're racing full time. They struggled last year at the 1.5-mile, 2-mile racetracks. They knew they needed to come out of the box, and caution is on the Speedway lap 5.
Robbie Gordon may have brushed the wall up between turns 3 and 4. Not sure, but we are under caution at lap 5.
I'm pretty sure he brushed it. I just don't know if it hurt anything or not. because he was up there with it, amongst it.
And that erases Jimmy Johnson's 1+ second lead.
Presented by Quaker State. Tough enough for race day. Tough enough for every day. Real durable oil. And sponsored by Subway. The big event is back. Any regular footlong for just $5. Subway. Eat fresh. By Sprint. Get NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile only from Sprint. Only on the Now Network. And by the all-new 09 F-150. It's not just a new truck. It's a new F-150.
Caution is out for the first time today. Yep, Digger's been here. The caution was not for Robbie Gordon. He did not brush the wall. The caution was for sprinkles in turn number 4. The treadless tires on these cars mean they don't race in the rain. But we're under the first caution, and Larry, half the field, 22 cars, elected to make pit stops.
And that doesn't surprise me. You know, we knew the guys at the front of the pack would not want to give up that track position. But if you're at the back of the pack, you really never pass up an opportunity to put Sunoco fuel in that car to keep that thing as full as you possibly can. In the perfect world for those 22 cars, they hope we run 5 or 6 laps that would put another additional 5 or 6 laps on the tires of like the 48 and the 26. They come to pit road under caution. You stay out then and you gain that position back.
All right, we're going to add a lap of caution. Ryan Newman's car has lost its transponder. He's going to come to pit road. They'll put a new one on, and he'll get his position back. Replace the transponder, but he has another problem. Look at the driver's side of the car and look at the rear wing. The end plate was askew when he came to pit road, and when he re-entered the racetrack, it came off.
And that end plate is part of the aerodynamic package that helps the rear downforce and the side force of that race car. And it's something that he will not be able to drive that car without. They will have to come to pit road and replace that end plate.
Now, in the NASCAR rule book, the end plate is a required element on both ends of that wing. They have a choice of 2. One is straight ahead flat. The other has a curve in it for different choice of aerodynamic balance. But you cannot be on the racetrack without both end plates.
I had a fan ask me about how come you don't race in the rain. Other sports play in the rain. How come you guys can't do that? I said, let me tell you something. Take a football player. Take the cleats off his shoes, just put him on a pair of slick shoes and wet the football field down and see where he goes. That's kind of what it
here. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, it's about 40 to 44 laps. When you're under caution, a good rule of thumb at this 2-mile racetrack is 2 caution laps equal 1 green flag lap. So that has to be factored into the equation when you're figuring your fuel mileage.
And as bad as I hate to mention this, is with rain in the area, it changes everything. It changes your strategy. You're not looking at a 250 lap race necessarily. Not right now, anyway.
Right. Our man Digger, he's hard at work even under caution.
He likes the cars at this speed.
Racing history, as I recall, has been updated and corrected, so I'm not sticking to my answer anymore. In Oakland, California, NASCAR ran a strictly stock race in October 1951. Most of the drivers were from the West Coast. That's now the Sprint Cup Series. Marvin Burke of Pittsburgh, California, is the first native Californian to win in what's now the Sprint Cup Series.
I think when we have questions that go that far back, we probably should refer to Dick Berggren and let him make sure he gets us an answer.
1 lap to green. Here's Dave Blaney on pit road. Blaney making his first start of the 2009 season for Prism Motorsports.
As Darrell mentioned, these are cars that are coming back on the pit road, like Joey Logano in the 20, like Dale Earnhardt Jr. They're coming back down to top off of fuel here at lap 17.
I'm surprised more guys didn't do that, because this gives you a few more. It gives you a few extra laps if thing goes back to green for a while over the guys that didn't pit.
Joey Logano, one of the 2 drivers battling for Rookie of the Year.
Had a great run in the Nationwide Series race last night. Got a top 5 finish, and we were talking earlier in the day. I think that was great medicine for him after what he went through at Speed Weeks last week.
And he's brushed the wall here in practice. As Darrell pointed out during our practice coverage on Speed, these cars so much different to drive than those nationwide series.
When you mat 850 horsepower, it's a lot different feel than when you mat 700 horsepower. And these things will take off on you in a hurry.
A little bit of a sprinkle. We're going to add one more caution lap. Good walk this race. Jimmy Johnson, Jamie McMurray, Jeff Gordon, and the Busch brothers. Have a look at 10th place. Northern California native A.J. Allmendinger, open wheeler for most of his career. Swap teams in kart, won a bunch of races, came here to NASCAR, and he doesn't have a full season deal, but he came out of the box firing on all cylinders at Daytona. Had a great qualifying effort here. He says he is loaded for bear. Now his name's in the rumor mill again, because Tuesday in Charlotte, North Carolina, Peter Windsor, longtime commentator and race team executive, is going to announce a new Formula One team based in the United States, and there are rumors swirling about maybe Allmendinger in that role, and he's not denying them.
Yeah, I talked to Richard Petty last night, and Richard said, well, I really like this kid. I like his personality. He's got a lot of energy. He said he has energized this whole Petty Motorsports operation.
Darrell, just as you've been talking about, we had 2 or 3 cars even come back to pit road that time. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Michael Waltrip, Scott Speed. They continue to top those cars off with fuel. There you see Michael leaving pit road now.
All 43 cars still on the lead lap. As we get set to restart, it'll be 22 laps complete. Tony Stewart and the Old Spice number 14 running in 8th place, started 7th. Had a good finish to what was a very trying week in Daytona last week.
He's very relaxed and very happy. I like the way he's going right now.
Green flag. Jimmy Johnson hauls him off to turn 1.
He got company this time, though. They're not going to let him get away so quickly. Probably a little bit cautious getting down into turn 1. That's where the rain was.
With Jamie McMurray, that 26 car, he wants to lead this race.
I think Jimmy tiptoed through there, and of course, what happened with Jeff Gordon is he ran up on the back of McMurray, and McMurray had to get out of the gas a little bit, and it really hurt Jeff going down the back.
And look at that yellow car coming into frame right there. The leader of the Where Did He Come From crowd, Kevin Harvick, in the 29, moving up from 13th starting spot to 10th. Here he is up against Juan Pablo Montoya.
And right now in a race like this is when you have to really give and take. Guys are going to be slipping, sliding, and trying to pass you, and you got to be sure you don't cut them off or run into the back of them, spin them out. This is the time to give and take. It's early, long way to go.
3rd place, the Busch brothers fighting. Kyle got up to 3rd in that green car. Kurt comes right back on the outside and retakes the spot in the blue deuce.
When you run that high line like Kurt Busch in the 2 did, Jeff Gordon in the 24, you can just keep it wound up. It kind of binds the car up sometimes when you're on the bottom. It seems like it does it more in 1 and 2 than 3 and 4 where they're at right now.
Yeah, as you go down into turn 1, Larry, it's this front straightaway it's a big D shape. So you really arc it down in. You stay out late like Jimmy Johnson is, and you just float it right to the bottom. When you get to 3 and 4, it's a much more abrupt entry. You got to turn it to the bottom or else let it go right out next to the wall and ride the rim around the top.
Kyle Busch about lost a spot there to Greg Biffle, and it looks like Biffle is going to move up. Yep, 5th place.
We talked about him at the top of the show. I just think he's quietly had a good race car all weekend long. Didn't have a great Daytona. Wants to rebound with getting back on track here.
But, you know, he just called in before that rain started and said his car was terrible. Wasn't the same car that he had yesterday. What's he say now, Burns?
Well, Darrell, you're right. The car had gone from bad fast to just bad. He said it was plowing and loose. Crew Chief Greg Irwin told him, wait for the tire pressures to build up, Greg.
I mean, when you know you're going to get long green runs here, I know the fans may say, well, if they drive bad on low air pressure, why do you start them on low air pressure? Because you know over the course of a 40 to 44 lap run, which is the fuel run, that you're going to gain so much pressure with heat, you have to start the pressure down where you don't have so much air pressure, they're like balloons.
Kurt Busch has driven around the outside of McMurray for 2nd. That's Busch in the number 2. McMurray now fighting with Jeff Gordon for 3rd.
And yes, folks, as you watch the cars go down the back straightaway, they are running a little skewed. That's just one of the things they learned about making more downforce with this new car.
Matt?
A lot of conversation, Mike, back and forth between Jimmy says the car just way too edgy earlier on. It's a handful.
Don't like an edgy car. Jukey maybe, but edgy no.
And, you know, this is the point where I think we have some comers and goers. This is where handling problems will start to show up. Yeah, we ran, you know, 12, 13 laps of caution, but we're 26 laps into this race now.
Well, that's what I like about coming on pit road and topping up with one to go. You don't know how long this race is going to go. What if it goes green here for a while?
Right.
You've got maybe a 10-lap advantage over people that stayed out.
Woo. First 10 nose to tail, and there's Denny Hamlin in the 11 inside of Kevin Harvick as they fight for 10th place.
And those cars right there going by that camera is why this place is full of people today.
Yes.
You don't feel that at home necessarily, but you sure feel it here.
That 11 car, Denny Hamlin, that just goes by Kevin Harvick in the 29. Denny started back in the 17th position. He's now cracked the top 10.
Look at this thing.
Look at that.
205 miles an hour into the corner.
I'm going to steal a John Force line. I think I saw Elvis at that speed.
And if you notice, the slowest off the throttle, 149 miles per hour in the middle of the corner. And that's what makes it. Jeff Hammond in the pre-race talked about engine durability. That's the reason that you're always on pins and needles about your engines.
Now, Darrell, the idea has been advanced about why not restrictor plates for this racetrack, and I think you just saw one of the reasons why.
Well, restrictor plate racing is for tracks where you could run a car wide open. You could not, I don't care how big a plate or how small a plate you put on the car, you just couldn't run around here wide open with no banking. Restrictor plate racing is momentum racing. You got to keep the car wound up, got to keep your foot in it. It would be like we saw at New Hampshire a few years ago. It would just destroy racing of any kind here if we put plates on these cars. No, not enough banking and no throttle response. That's bad racing.
"29 laps complete. All 43 cars on the lead lap."
You know, our Daytona 500 winner, Matt Kenseth, in that 17 car, he was one of those 23 cars that made a pit stop. He started back in the 24th position. He has now made his way up to the 12th position and continuing to gain spots. There he is right there behind Kevin Harvick in the 29. He can really get that car down in the corner good, Darrell, and it seems to really go through the middle under acceleration.
Well, the turns are so big and sweeping, and the track is so wide, you just let the car kind of float out of the corner. Get it in.
Got no pressure here.
Mat it, and then just let it run up the hill until it gets out to the bank, out to the straightaway.
You hear a Kenseth spotter up on the roof, Mike Kalanoff, who got himself a unique souvenir of their Daytona 500 win last week, a big permanent tattoo. He said it hurt like hell, but boy, it's fun to have it there. And all the other spotters are really jabbing him about it, saying we want to see it. Not going to happen.
All those other spotters are just jealous, I think, right
That's
now.
it. How about Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s day, Matt?
Mike running back in the 34th position. Junior has pitted twice under caution lap 17 and 21 to top off, but Junior says the car, as far as forward bite goes on exit, worse than it was in final practice on Saturday. Expect a lot of changes when they make their next stop on pit road.
Well, yeah, I think coming in and topping off was one of the things he's doing, but I also think he was working on that car. Saw him made some adjustments to it. That's another good thing about coming in right now. If the car's not right, maybe you can get it better before you get into one of these long greens.
And the lack of forward bite just simply means when he puts the throttle down, the rear's wanting to get loosed. It's just spinning the rear tires. He has to play with the throttle to get off the corner.
So it's not a dental problem.
No, it's not something that your dentist can fix.
Jimmy Johnson, the leader. Kurt Busch in second, just ran his fastest lap of the race so far.
All right, see.
Is sponsored by Ask.com. Where do NASCAR fans get answers? Ask.com, the official search engine of NASCAR. By AT&T, your world delivered. And by State Farm, where great coverage meets great rates.
36 of 250 laps complete. 36 laps, 72 miles. Jimmy Johnson out in front of Kurt Busch now by 2.5 seconds. Jeff Gordon 4 seconds back, with close company from Greg Biffle, Jamie McMurray, Kyle Busch back to 6th. Denny Hamlin rounds out the top 10 right now. Of all the cars that pitted early, Matt Kenseth's made the most progress. He's up to 11th.
Yeah, and as we showed at the top of the show, the fuel window was about 40 to 44 laps. But when you look at those 17 caution laps, remember I talked about a 2-to-1 ratio. It should let these guys that did not pit be able to go to about lap 50. But now here's the guy on the move is Ryan Newman in his 39 car. Remember, he had the problem under that first caution where he lost the end plate off the wing, was all the way at the back of the pack. He has now made his way back up to the 23rd spot, so he's cracked the top 25 now.
Joe Nemechek on pit road with the hood up. It's the first of the cars to have problems today. All other 42 starters on the racetrack, and it looks as if they're going to push Nemechek's unsponsored number 87 to the garage. Let's check with Dick Berggren.
Well, last year, Kyle Busch and his team were an absolute house of fire for about 3/4 of the year. But when it came time to running for the championship, they just didn't have it. Kyle said that they needed to get a little bit more progress, step up, try some new things, and that's exactly what they're doing today. They are already thinking about the race that's going to happen here around Labor Day, because that one counts toward the championship. So they're trying some different things. Right now, that setup is causing the car to be a little bit tight in the center, a little bit loose off, and he needs more grip. So they've got their work cut out for him when they do pit here in Kyle Busch's area.
You know, Larry, as I watched the 48 car, the only time this whole 3 days we've been here that he wasn't #1 on the sheet or in a race was that one moment during qualifying when he got beaten by the 83 car for the pole.
And you heard his explanation for losing the pole to Vickers. They'd both gone to In-N-Out Burger the night before, and Jimmy had a double-double, and Brian just had a single, and that must have been the difference.
It must have been.
5 100s.
As we said, was it a cheeseburger without the cheese?
I think it was. Confusing.
Now there is Brian Vickers, who qualified on the pole but had to go to the back of the field for what NASCAR technically terms an unapproved change or adjustment prior to the race, and he's worked his way up to 21st.
And you can see him. You can run on the apron here. You can run down off of both corners, and on the apron you can get into turn 3 very, very well with the left sides down below the white line, which is totally different than last week.
And I tell you, that car running with him, David streaming that 12 car, his first year driving for Penske Racing, he replaced Ryan Newman in his car. David started back in the 38th position, and he's been keeping stride with Brian. He's up to the 22nd spot.
And the reason you run so close like that, you get a good draft here. I mean, that car behind there, the 12 car, is getting a nice pull off of Vickers. You see Vickers go way down below the white line in the middle of the turn. That's certainly legal, and there's a lot of grip down there sometime.
Rookie Joey Logano running in 40th spot, and the mission for today: bring the car home in one piece, finish the race, because as caution is out, raindrops
keep falling on my head.
Didn't that song win the Academy Award
a long time ago?
Yeah. It's not one we want to hear today. Not here. There's a look at the 18-year-old rookie in today's Home Depot rookie profile. Joey Logano has a chance to reflect on his first Daytona 500 and his first week as a full-time NASCAR Sprint Cup Series driver.
Your car is sitting there when setting up for the Daytona 500. That's when it finally hit me. That's the biggest race you're ever going to be in, really, and the first time to be in that was really cool. Even though it didn't go completely the way I wanted to, I felt like I learned a lot, and a lot of stuff I can go for the next time I get there. I can use a lot of that. A lot of it's just me still trying to get used to the feel of these cars, and you got to have them. They drive so different than every other car that I've ever driven, and I think than any other car there is. So it just takes time to get used to the feel for these things, and I'm sure eventually I'll get it.
Darrell, that's one thing you remarked on, how different these cars must be to drive than anything else he's ever been in.
Well, even the guys that have been driving in the Cup Series their whole careers, a lot of them don't like this car. And so the good news for him is this is the only car he's ever going to have to drive. So some of the other guys had the old twisted sister that they got to drive. So at least what he doesn't know, he doesn't know.
Well, I'd say pit road will be a busy place. Krista, they're coming your way.
That's right, and if it's a Twisted Sister, well, David Reagan says we're not going to take it, because David Reagan is right in the middle of the Roush cars, all Roush cars running in the top 13. Reagan said his car, it needs to turn better. It's a little tight in the center, four-wheel slide off. Steve?
Krista Kurt Busch in the number 2 car says he's a little snug getting into turn 3. You see him in the upper left. Let's go to Matt.
Bad news for the competition. Leader Jimmy Johnson said his car needed to hook better in the center of the corner. Chassis adjustment already completed, Dick.
Jeff Gordon in for his pit stop, and like just about everybody else on my end of pit road, the car is tight in the center, and they are a bit loose off, so they're trying to make adjustments with air pressure to fix that problem.
Kurt Busch is going to win the race off pit road.
You know why? Because he's running good. I tell you, the crew always, Larry, you know this, they always step up when you're running well.
It definitely helps everything. That was a great pit stop by Pat Tryson and that crew. You also saw David Reagan, the Jimmy Fenningling crew, that 6 car, the UPS car, having some good stops.
Under caution for the second time today for a light sprinkle coming across the track. Time to have a look at today's State Farm safety report.
We've all rode down the road and had a rock fly up off the ground and hit your windshield. Imagine this rock hitting your windshield at 190 miles an hour. Imagine this rock being a lug nut or a wheel weight or other types of debris bouncing off your windshield. Well, a glass windshield couldn't stand that. But the windshield in the stock car can. The reason for that is a 1/4-inch thick polycarbonate hard-coated windshield. That's right. When anything hits it, it's almost bullet resistant. It bounces right off. Watch this. You can't do that with a regular windshield. With stock cars, it'll take a licking and you can keep right on going.
Somebody get me Mr. October. You know, Reggie Jackson drives the pace car here today. He's got a big fleet of muscle cars that he has restored and collects. Why'd you bring Mr. October to the February race? To remind everybody that the next race here at Auto Club Speedway is no longer Labor Day weekend. It's in October.
Which makes it, as Dick Bergman was talking about, right in the middle of the chase.
Yeah, and Reggie is a great car guy. You see him at Barrett Jackson, and then Meacham's in a number of those car auctions.
Now, we just saw John Andretti in that 34 car. Now, John is leading this race right now because they elected to stay out to get those 5 bonus points. That's a car that right now is in the top 35, but they're working very hard to stay there, because once we clear Bristol, the 5th race of the year, we will go to the current 2009 owner points. The first 5 races based on the 2008 owner points.
Reed Sorensen comes off pit road after having to make a penalty stop.
Could be it. That's a backup car. Maybe didn't get enough practice in the car to know exactly. Tacks vary a little bit. May have had a tachometer problem.
Reed was too fast entering the pits and too fast exiting the pits. He served 1 penalty for that.
That makes you think there might be something different reading in this tack and what his backup car. This backup car has something different about it.
Look at Bobby Labonte as we give you our first Ask.com trivia question. Well, for what team did Mr. October hit the most home runs in his storied career?
You can't answer it. You have to go to Ask.com.
It's hard not to answer them, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, especially when you know.
It's like when you know the answer, you just want to.
Dan Gurney is not the answer to this question, but you can go to Ask.com and find out. And Reggie has a brand new website, reggiejackson.com. He told us about it in pre-race. He's just launched that in partnership with Ask.com. The answer is 269 home runs for one team.
Now, John Andretti and Dave Blaney, they've now made pit stops, as well as Elliott Sadler. So now Kurt Busch, the 2 car, he's leading this race. And I don't know about Hammond's swing. There's some work to do there.
Kurt Busch won here in 2004.
Let's take a look at this one more time. Looks like he's chopping wood.
That's not the first time I've seen him do that.
He's Mr. 3rd week of February.
Which not a whole lot happens.
I would suggest he bunted myself.
David Reagan, one of the Roushketeers for Roush Fenway Racing in the UPS Ford Fusion.
Just
currently 5th.
Continue to say that I think this is our next first-time winner on the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series.
We're coming green this time. We will complete 46 laps. 92 of 500 miles. Pace car is in. And Kurt Busch from Las Vegas, Nevada, past series champion, will bring them down to the green flag. We're back under green. That was Matt Kenseth dipping low in the banking on his teammate David Reagan.
And Larry mentioned David Reagan right there in the 6 car. I saw this statistic and I couldn't believe it. He completed more laps last year than anyone, which based on his previous year, you would have never thought that.
And almost made the chase.
And almost made the chase.
For the lead, here comes Jimmy Johnson right back at Kurt Busch.
And I tell you what, his teammate Jeff Gordon in that 24 car, he wants a little bit of this battle too. Well, they're going to be a dead heat. Let's see. Looks like Jimmy Johnson barely leads that lap.
And I tell you, when these things are on fresh tires and this cool condition right now, those engines are seeing 9,500 RPM headed off in the corner and over 200 miles an hour.
4th lead change among 3 different drivers. Johnson, who dominated both practice sessions,
Get back in that rhythm.
has led every green flag lap so far.
You know, Darrell talked about the draft working. Jeff Gordon in the 24, Greg Biffle in the 16. They love seeing those guys run side by side. It pulls them right up there to them.
How about a little NASCAR on Fox? Crank it up for a Sunday afternoon serenade. Jeff Gordon working on Kurt Busch for 2nd place. And Greg Biffle moving in the 16. Jeff Gordon told us Friday what a tough year last year was, going winless. He won a qualifying race at Daytona, but that's not a Sprint Cup point race. And he can't wait to get back to victory lane, and they have pulled out all the stops to get him there.
Well, a 4-time champion with 81 wins, and you go into a season, you don't win a race, you never could have imagined that such a thing would happen to you. So he's probably still trying to figure out what happened last year, but he knows how to fix it. Win one this year.
But, you know, he also told us that, you know, he was kind of having some backaches. Of course, he went through the birth of his daughter, Ella. He also told us on Friday, you know what? He's gone through the growing pains of being a dad now. His back feels great, that he's been looking so forward to this 2009 season.
Wow, we just saw Sam Hornish out of shape. And here comes Brian Vickers, who won the pole for this race and continues to move through the field after starting out back. He's up to 14th place.
I like that line he's running. That's a good line to run because nobody else is running it.
2 years ago here, Vickers scored Toyota's first top 10 finish in the Sprint Cup Series. That was the first time a foreign nameplate finished in the top 15 in NASCAR's Top Series since 1962, when Robert Barrier drove a little MG sports car to 15th place finish in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
See, Carl's back here. This is Carl Edwards in the Aflac car there. He's running in the 15th position. And hello. Boy, that'll get your attention.
Travis Quapple in the 28 car got sideways. Brian Vickers in the 83 car took full advantage of that, went by both of them.
And you saw that right rear tire smoking. I mean, that's how much horsepower these engines have. They can smoke the tires at 180 miles an hour.
Next Sunday, NASCAR on Fox, Sin City, Las Vegas for the Shelby 427.
Oh, 27 more miles of racing.
That brings back a lot of memories. The Shelby 427 and our friend Dan Gurney.
You bet. Reagan looking back at teammate Jamie McMurray. 7th and 8th right now, ahead of Tony Stewart, the red car. Steve Burns.
Well, Mike, Daytona 500 champ Matt Kenseth started 24th. He is up to 5th. Before the caution came out, he told Drew Blickensderfer, he said, I'm loose in and I'm bouncy off. If you can fix the center of the corner, we'll fix that exit. So what they did to that 17 car, they made an air pressure adjustment and lowered the track bar.
Well, Darrell, I think that's what you and Jeff always, and myself, talk about. Fix the first problem first. Let's fix the middle of the corner, and then we'll see what that does to the exit. We may calm the exit down if we make the center better.
Yeah, an engineer taught me that a long time ago. Whatever the first word out of the driver's mouth is, if he says I'm loose and whatever, or if you fix whatever he said, the part that's broken is what he says first. Fix that, it probably take care of the other problem.
Jimmy Johnson, Matt, has led every green flag lap so far.
And Mike, a quick comment as Jimmy drove by last time. He said after their last adjustment with the chassis, it's just as tight as it was the first run, if not a little tighter. But he is yarded out to about a 3-second lead over the Blue Deuce of Busch.
In the last 4 races here, Jimmy Johnson a 3rd, a 2nd, and 2 victories at his home racetrack. Laps, 118 of 500 miles complete here at Auto Club Speedway in Southern California. Here are the biggest movers from where we started the day.
And what's neat about that graphic, when you look at David Rudeman, Michael Waltrip, Brian Vickers, those are all cars that had to go to the rear of the field because of an engine change. In fact, Michael never even made a qualifying run. He had issues leaving pit road on Friday for qualifying. Those are all Toyotas. It was a common problem between those. They put a coating on the lifters, and the coating was coming off the lifters, getting on the camshaft, and just wearing the lobes off the camshaft. That's what the problem. But David Rudeman, he's had a good race car all week. He's moved up to the 16th position in that 00.
Hey, you know, he ended the year strong. I mean, you think about Homestead. He sat on the pole at Homestead. David is a really good little race car driver. And his teammate back there, Marcus Ambrose, and of course Michael's not too far behind. Michael's 22nd. Michael Waltrip, my brother. All those cars are running pretty decent at this time.
And you saw Matt Kenseth on the biggest movers list because he starts where he usually starts, in the mid-20s, and he usually finishes up front.
Not unusual.
No surprise. More on Michael Waltrip's team, Matt Yoakum.
Mike, we talk a lot about second chances in life. Mickey Rourke at the Oscars possibly tonight could pick up a big prize, but Shannon Myers, a member of Michael Waltrip's team, he parlayed an impressive athletic career, not only in the NFL, playing for Tampa Bay, Oakland, and the New York Jets, but after his playing career ended, he found a second chance in NASCAR as a tire changer. He's parlayed that about a year ago. He got a chance of a lifetime to step back into the movies. A big part as an extra in the movie Leatherhead, starring George Clooney and Renee Zellweger. Chance of a lifetime, about 30 minutes it was shot from the MWR shop. And by the way, if you'd like to see more of his behind-the-scenes photos, just check out foxsports.com for more. And he says he's hoping to continue his acting career.
You know, there is a lot of stories on pit road with these crew members. I mean, they're not just guys that just worked on cars growing up. I mean, there's so many neat stories down there. And Matt and Krista and Dick and Steve do a great job of sharing those stories with us.
You just think about, you know, Jeff Burton was in a soap opera, and Jeff Gordon went and did Sesame Street, and they do television shows, and they're on Letterman. Why are these guys, they're so comfortable? Because they're so real. It's who they are. They're not fake. These guys are just regular guys like everybody in this grandstand. They just happen to be good race car drivers as well.
Well, like the Dale Jr. interview you did, where he just kind of opened his heart up to you, and
it's honest. Yeah. You can't fake that.
These, Ken Squire probably said it best. These are common men climbing into these cars and doing uncommon things. These are heroes you can believe in.
Yep. And I believe that.
Now here's Jeff Gordon in the 24 car, still running in the 3rd position, and Darrell mentioned that he just starred in one of the shows of Sesame Street, and he actually played a commentator, and they wanted him to kind of get the race started, but no, he did not do boogity, 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 but since it was with the worms, it was wiggly, 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 and he got a kick out of doing that.
I'll bet his daughter will get a bigger kick out of it.
She's a huge Sesame Street fan.
Elmo. Everything's Elmo for Ella Sophia.
Jeff Gordon, he's running that Brian Vickers lane in that 24 all the way below the white line. And again, we stress at Daytona that was out of bounds. It's only out of bounds at Daytona and Talladega. It's perfectly legal here.
Those tracks, they now have a double yellow line, no passing.
I bet his spotter and Vickers' spotter are standing side by side. and he's telling Jeff, you know where Vickers is running and making pretty darn good time.
But you know, Darrell, you mentioned that. You know, when you think of the spotters up there to give these guys clear and where wrecks are, that's another role that a spotter plays, especially at a racetrack this big, is to tell the driver where drivers that are running well, where they're running on the racetrack. There you see them right there above the main grandstand.
Kyle Busch yesterday came down pit road and asked his spotter. They were talking about would it take 4 tires to what, and he said he asked his spotter what he thought they should do. That's how much confidence he has in his spotter, not just telling him clear and low, but also strategy, because he can see the whole track.
Jimmy Johnson with a 2-second lead on. Scott Riggs has just gone to the garage, joining Dave Blaney and Joe Nemechek. There's your leader, Jimmy Johnson, and his lead is cut in half. New 2nd place car, Jeff Gordon, running down Jimmy Johnson. Let's show you the pass for 2nd.
Well, Jeff had been working this real low line. You can see he's down on that apron, and again, it's just a great place to run. A lot of grip there, and he's able to get back in the gas and really carry a lot of momentum up off the corner. And this is right here is where Kurt Busch had to say, okay, Uncle, you can get in.
But Jimmy Johnson's lap times have fallen off a half a second over the last 5 laps.
Yeah, all of a sudden he started running really high on the racetrack as if that car has picked up a bad push.
Well, this is by far the longest green flag run that we've had, and we're probably right now we're about 12 to 14 laps away from a pit stop. But yeah, once Jeff Gordon in the 24 passed Kurt Busch in the 2, he just drove away from him. Yeah, the report on Scott Riggs, that 36 car, they're going to try to fix that car and get back out, as they had to make a pit stop back on lap 67 with no fuel pressure. He went back out, and fuel was actually spilling in the car from somewhere under the hood.
You know what that 48's done? I just figured it out. Saving fuel.
Oh.
He's trying to stretch his fuel. I think they must have some fuel strategy that they're trying to work.
Tony
Because
Stewart,
he slowed way down.
Stewart trying to break into the top 5. Excuse me, Darrell.
Yes,
Let's check with Matt.
Stewart also trying to score something he's never done here in Sprint Cup competition, and that's a victory at the Auto Club Speedway, Mike. He said the car, very good, likes the field, but it needs to be tighter. That's what they're going to look at the next time they hit pit road. But Stewart pretty pleased so far with how this Old Spice car is running in California.
But I'm going to tell you what, if I was Darian Grubb right now, his crew chief, I would not be unhappy to hear that the car is a little on the loose side, because I think this racetrack is only going to get tighter as the night moves in and the track cools down. It's those cars like Jimmy Johnson in the 48 that are too tight right now. That's where you're going to have to take a big swing at it, making adjustments.
Go back deep in the top 20. 18th place is Brian Vickers, who qualified on pole, had to start in the back, as did Michael Waltrip, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. right with them in 20th position.
And they're about a half a lap behind leader Jimmy Johnson right now in that 48 car. We still have 38 cars on the lead lap. And once again, we're about 10 to 12 laps away from what would be green flag stops.
Except for those guys. Don't they have a little advantage?
No, but because of the caution we had, Darrell, on lap 42, everybody's pretty much even on fuel and tires.
Dick Berggren.
Well, Larry was talking about pit stops coming up, and that's what Brian Vickers really doesn't want, because that is where his carburetor problem we told you about earlier is worse. He's got the best pit stall, but when he tries to pick up the gas out of a pit stop, the car is bulky. This is a brand new design race car Brian Vickers has taken from the back of the pack to mid-pack, a new design, a new generation, a lighter car with all new geometry, and so far it's working.
Thanks, Dick. Jimmy Johnson has just put rookie contender Joey Logano a lap down. So both rookies, Logano, Scott Speed, along with David Gilliland and Jeremy Mayfield. Those are the cars one lap off the pace.
Well, Mike, as I watch that 24 car, Jeff Gordon, you know, we've talked about him so much. You talked about him going winless. He has not been to victory lane other than the Gatorade dual race at Daytona, but he's not been to victory lane since Lowe's Motor Speedway in October of 2007, a long time ago for this three-time champion.
Dick?
Well, Jeff Gordon ordinarily doesn't like a loose race car, Mike. That's very well known, and that's exactly what he's got now. He has told the crew that it is loose enough when he picks up the throttle that he can't get the kind of bite he wants. He's not getting off the corner as well as he'd like. So there is still more speed in that 24.
Darrell, he may be loose, but
Yeah.
he may be leading here in a second.
But he smacked the wall off of 2 there with that right rear, but I don't think it hurt anything. Whoa, Jeff, be careful, buddy.
3 wide, 2 above you.
Casey Mears in the middle.
I think you're gonna see some right rear damage on that car when we get a chance to look at it, because he hit that wall pretty hard there off turn 2 over there with that back end.
Third place changes hands. Greg Biffle in the 16 in the Ford, moving in front of Kurt Busch. Here's a look at Gordon kissing the wall.
He just got such a run off turn 2, and the car just is in that 4-wheel drift.
That's where he's talking about it being loose, though, Larry. It's kind of up off the corner, and that back end steps out a little bit, and it touched the wall. I don't think it hurt anything.
Nope, he wants the lead.
All the way, all 4 wheels below that white line on the apron. Let's see if he can win the drag race down this front straightaway going into turn 1. His car has been getting into the corner really nice.
And Jeff Gordon leads a lap. It's the first lap he has led today.
I want you to look at that side by side. Remember, we've already seen over 200 miles per hour going off into turn 1.
Darrell, I don't see a whole lot of teammate cooperation here, do you?
No, Jeff will be the first to tell you, we race each other just like we are not teammates. We don't expect each other to give us anything. That's how we race each other.
Both cars prepared in the same shop, the 24 and the 48 at Hendrick Motorsports, while Mark Martin's number 5 and Dale Jr.'s 88 are prepared in a separate shop in the same complex. They're in Concord, North Carolina.
Yeah, Mark Martin in that 5 car, we see him right there. He's really not moved back, but he's not moved ahead. He started back in the 18th position. Now he's getting a little pressure from David Ruderman in that 00. This would be a battle for 13th.
You won't hear from Mark until late.
All 5 of the Roush Fenway cars have made their way into the top 10. Gordon leads here in Southern California. David Stremme and Martin Truex have just made pit stops. Next week, Digger and all the rest of the NASCAR on Fox crew will head to Las Vegas. NASCAR on Fox at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then to the 1.5 miles at Atlanta Motor Speedway in Hampton, Georgia on Sunday, March 8th. Jeff Burton is in, Clint Boyer, and Steve, here's Kurt Busch.
Kurt Busch has gotten loose, Mike. Going to drop air pressure on both rear tires. They're also going to pull tape off the front. The engine's gotten a little bit hot on that 2 car of Kurt Busch.
Casey Kane, Eric Almirola coming in, and Sam Hornish on this lap as we move into a round of green flag pit stops. Ryan Newman is in.
A rather lengthy stop on the 2, but I think he's all right. It must be that tape they're getting off.
Elliott Sadler on pit road, and here comes Jimmy Johnson.
These should be all 4 tire stops. Jimmy Johnson's coming your way, Matt.
And Jimmy's biggest complaint, Larry Mack, was the car was just too tight, especially it slides to a stop, especially on entry into 3, chassis adjustment. Expecting to see how much brake they're using as the brake dust came off those wheels. As Mike Lingerfeld goes ahead and hits the lugs on that left front. Jimmy said it was also tight at both ends, but following his teammate Jeff Gordon, it helped him figure out what he might need to do later in turns 3 and 4. The 29 of Harvick is in. His car is extremely tight as well.
Dale Jr. is in. Tony Stewart's been in and out. So is Jamie McMurray. Dick.
And Jeff Gordon is on his way in as well. The car has been loose, particularly coming off the corners, but they're going to leave it exactly the way it is. Just fire 4 tires at it, put fuel in it. They're not going to change the chassis at all. He's got a fast car. Krista.
David Reagan says his car's a little too free on entry, tight off. David Reagan taking 4 tires on this stop.
Kyle Busch is in, Denny Hamlin, Montoya, Matt Kenseth, Brian Vickers. A lot of takers on pit road. Greg Biffle picked up the lead for a lap, and here comes Biffle into the pits. Dick.
Well, Kyle Busch is into the pits, and there is steam coming out of the right side of his car. He has not been happy with the performance of this car at all. Steve.
Dick, Greg Biffle says I've gotten loose when I get on the gas at both ends of this racetrack. Tighten me up. So they're going to make 1 round in the left rear for the 16, Dick.
Carl Edwards will be next to pit. They made a lot of changes to this car this morning. They didn't like the way it behaved in practice. They didn't know what they were going to have, but Carl has been very happy with the behavior of the car on the radio. It'll be 4 tires and fuel, as has been the case with everybody. Carl momentarily stalled the engine, wrench in the back to adjust the chassis as well. A nice pit stop underway. Nice and clean. Edwards is gone.
Waltrip, Allmendinger, Logano, and Speed among those on pit road as we cycle through green flag pit stops at lap 87.
Yeah, you give up so much on old tires versus new tires. Once 1 or 2 cars started hitting pit road, you couldn't afford to stay out there because it's about 2 seconds that you'll gain with new tires.
I think it'll be interesting to see how this 48 car reacts to the adjustments and the tires. Looked like he had it timed just right to me, Mike. He had a car that was given up right at the end of the run, right when was time to pit, which that'd be that's a good way to have your car set up.
And the battle is rejoined. Kurt Busch on the outside. Jimmy Johnson, native of El Cajon, California, made a trip back to his old stomping grounds this week. He has a car dealership with Rick Hendrick in Kearney Mesa, suburb of San Diego, and visited the old neighborhood and got to see some folks.
Another thing we know about that 24 car there that's in the middle of your screen, he likes to be out front. There's probably not another driver out there, another car out there that wants clean air all the time.
It's not an environmental thing.
No, it isn't.
It's all that downforce on the front of the car. Jeff Gordon has gone back to the lead, coming up on 90 laps complete.
Wireless, get the inside track from Penske Racing and race analysis from our drivers, plus highlights and high-speed action, all on VCast from Verizon Wireless, America's largest, most reliable wireless network.
Jeff Gordon has a 2-second lead on his Hendrick Motorsports teammate Jimmy Johnson. Greg Biffle about 0.4 of a second back. Let's have a look at our Quaker State race summary at 93 laps, 186 miles. Jeff Gordon has led for 14 of those laps. Jimmy Johnson led most all the green flag laps of the first 80 or so. 2 caution flags for a total of 20 laps for sprinkles. And most importantly, I think during that round of green flag pit stops, 2 of the Roush Fenway cars, Greg Biffle and Carl Edwards, each stayed out to lead a lap, pick up 5 bonus points during the pit stop exchange.
We're riding here with Carl Edwards in the 99 car, won 9 races back in 2008 last year, started in the 19th position. He has moved his way up to the 9th spot.
And I said I talked to Carl this morning, and Carl was not excited about his car for today. He said it's just not, we can't get it comfortable. And he said hopefully we've made some good changes and we can work on it during the race. I think he has improved it some, Larry, since the race started, up in the top 10. A car here that's not comfortable is very difficult to drive because you enter these turns at such a high speed. And if that thing is not acting right getting into the corner, it messes up the whole corner.
What about the driver load here, Darrell? At Daytona with the steep banking, you're pushed down into the seat going into the banking. This track is relatively flat. How does it feel different?
Other than the fact that it's 500 miles, you're going to be out here 3.5, maybe 4 hours. It mentally is not near as tough as Daytona. It's not near as physical as Daytona. And you've gotten enough straightaway down the back that you can sit up in the seat and relax for a few seconds. So I never found this to be a very demanding racetrack physically or mentally. Most of the time you just work on the car, trying to make the car better.
New second place car, Greg Biffle.
Yeah, that 48 car has gone off big time.
And I think watching that long green run a while ago, one of the better cars on the long run toward the end of that before pit stops was Greg Biffle in that 16 car.
Now Jimmie Johnson is running the same lap times he was when he was leading, 41.80s and 90s. But Biffle, that team has made their car better. He's running down in the 41.50s.
But I'm not so sure the 48 car may not be worse. This racetrack is getting faster. It's gaining grip. It's cooling down. That's the reason we see a lot of these guys picking up the pace.
The reason I know the 48 car is not right or not like he would like it, he's moving all over the place. Look, he's on the bottom now. He was up high earlier. He wanted to know where Jeff was running. He's getting down on the apron trying to make the car work. They got problems with this car. Not problems they can't fix, but right at this moment, I don't think the car's right.
Another of the Roush Fenway Fords, Matt Kenseth, the Daytona 500 winner, coming up against Kurt Busch for 4th place.
You just got to know that at the end of the day, as everybody likes to say, that 17 car will be a player.
No question.
Well, and we talked about it earlier. You know, we've had 17 races here, and of those 17 races, 13 of them has been run by either Hendrick Motorsports or Roush Fenway Racing. When I look at our top 10 right now,
Here, the set of tires for whatever reason, Drew.
Matt Kenseth talking to Drew Blickensderfer, but of our top 10 cars, 8 of them are Hendrick or Roush Fenway.
Tony Stewart, the Old Spice car, 13 seconds back in 6th. From the top 5 on back, there is a big gap, an 11-second gap. Back to Stewart, Kyle Busch, Jamie McMurray. Here is Kyle. Yesterday, he won 2 of NASCAR's Big 3 Touring Series, the Camping World Truck Series and the Nationwide Series.
I don't see how he could come out here tonight and drive as hard as he did in those 2 races yesterday and have any gas left. He drove hard yesterday, won both those races. Not real sure that he might not just be pacing himself a little bit physically.
Well, Darrell, you pointed it out. Of the 250 laps raced here yesterday, he led 238. And honestly, those 12 laps that he did not lead was through cautions and cycle of green flag pit stops and things of that nature.
Jamie Mack started on pole after Brian Vickers went to the rear due to the engine change. And here comes Carl Edwards in 9th place to McMurray's 8th. So 4 of the 5 Roush cars in the top 10 right now. Krista?
I want to update you on what's going on with the CarQuest Kellogg's car driven by Mark Martin. At the start of that run, Mark Martin said his car was a little loose, but not really a big deal. Well, it became a very big deal. When he came in on that stop on lap 86, he said his car was extremely loose. They went several rounds of track bar for an adjustment. He said it felt like the right rear tire gave up early in the run, but just 2 laps ago, Mark Martin came on and said it's still loose, but a lot better.
And Larry, I know you said that you think the track will tighten up and a loose. This track doesn't do that. This track actually loosens up. When the sun goes down, I don't know if it's the humidity, I don't know if what it is, but this track, the cars get looser.
And you know, it's interesting you mentioned that. That was actually the nature of this car last year at even racetracks where the track would get tighter. It's like for whatever reason, the aerodynamic package on this car we're racing now just tended to get looser.
Yeah, I think a lot of the crew chiefs would anticipate, yeah, it's going to tighten up, so being free is going to be good. It just hadn't worked out that way.
You know, Mike, our green flag stops, they came somewhere between lap 84 and 87. We seem to be on that green flag look right now. The next stop should come about lap 126. If you go back to one of our bullet points on our FedEx Understanding the Race, the average longest green flag run in this spring race here at Auto Club Speedway is roughly around 81 laps. So that's going to take us right there to that point, which will be right at the halfway point of this race. There's the whole family.
Was he got a condo down there?
They're all down there.
I don't know. Jeff Gordon. Race we've had in a long time here in California with a green flag run of more than 60 laps. We'll double check that.
Yeah, this thing in the middle of the race, it'll generally go pretty long.
Jeff Gordon, your leader. Greg Biffle, 2.3 seconds back. Jimmy Johnson, 4 seconds off the lead. Matt Kenseth, 4th. Kurt Busch in 5th.
Even as durable and as dependable as these engines and cars are, you still have to pace yourself a little bit in the middle part of the race so that you got some car left at the end of the day.
Now, earlier we had a couple of drivers talking, Darrell, about carburetor trouble.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things a tuner does to get better gas mileage, and particularly on a super speedway like this. And I think if we go down to the cutaway car and down to Jeff Hammond, Jeff, you got a carburetor down there? You can show the people what we're talking about.
Yes, I do, Darrell. I got a couple of them here. Now, you were mentioning a minute ago, you were talking about the boosters and the squirters and some of the things the guys can do. First off, here is a booster. This is what kind of pulls fuel down inside the carburetor itself. Let me show you on this beautiful Roush Yates engine we have here exactly what a booster does do. You come out of where the fuel is kept through the jets, it flows up through here and is pulled down into the carburetor. Now, guys can change that booster, make it a little bit more lean. They can also change the squirter, which when you're pumping the throttle makes a difference. Now, Darrell, you talked about the rear pump. You can loosen that up a little bit. Again, it won't pump as much fuel. But what happens is when you get to low speed and you're working the throttle right in here, a lot of times when you throw it wide open, it stumbles. It doesn't get enough fuel and air mixture to do it justice. Until you get it wide open and it's really pulling a lot of air and fuel down through this carburetor, all of a sudden the driver complains about it stumbling, not running clean. This is some of the things that the engine guy has done to try to get the fuel mileage, but at the same time, a lot of drivers don't like it.
You know the most amazing thing about that whole piece? You ask Hammond, did he have a carburetor?
He had how many carburetors?
It's like asking the preacher, does he have a Bible?
Yeah, how many carburetors did he have anyway?
He's got all kinds of carburetors.
They're all cut in pieces. None of them work.
But it was, he was showing the folks that's a racing carburetor.
Right.
If you raised the hood on your car today, you probably wouldn't see a carburetor quite like that.
Not
and that's
since about 1992.
Yeah, that's the other fascinating thing about these engines in these cars. They are push rod engines. They run on, they're naturally aspirated on a carburetor like you saw. They turn 9,500 RPM and they live forever.
Hang in there, but I know they're killing you down there, but nobody coming out back.
Steve.
Mike, that 16 team led by Greg Irwin doing a great job getting that car for Greg Biffle better and better. Just a second ago, Greg said, you give me just a little bit more grip off the corners and you'll fix me right up.
David Reagan may need a little fix-up. Let's have a look at the number 6.
He's running that high line.
Whoa, that's
and the car just got loose.
A little wee bit too high.
Yep. He almost got up there where there's just no grip whatsoever.
I think he picked up a lot of, even at that high, you got to get a lot of sand and dirt and debris on your tires and the car won't cut.
What are they saying, Krista?
Really not much at all, Mike. Yep, he got up into the wall. They asked, how does the car look? Spotter Toby Weldon said the car looks okay. David Reagan really running right now about where he customarily runs here at California in 4 starts. It ranges from 12th to 16th. So this is customary, but he knows he has a really good car. But again, they told him it looks okay.
Yeah, he had made his way up into the top 10 not that long ago. Now he's fallen back to 14th. But, you know, back to something that Darrell was talking about you know, an 8-cylinder engine with a 4-barrel naturally aspirated carburetor. I get questioned all the time by fans with today's passenger cars mainly being fuel injection. Why do we not go to fuel injection with these Sprint Cup Series cars? NASCAR, as we have pointed out time and time again, they work so hard to keep the cost of this sport contained to the owners in this sport. And if they went away from that carburetor to fuel injection, that would cost the owners so much money to develop that it would just drive the cost way up.
And there's another good reason. You can measure every part on a carburetor. You cannot measure as easily the computer that controls fuel injection, and NASCAR does not want computers on board these race cars.
But I know this is the car tomorrow, and eventually we're going to be working on the engine of tomorrow because technology tells us we need to move to another level.
So you mean Hammond's carburetors are going to be outdated?
That's when we got problems.
Jeff Gordon is your leader. We're close.
Presented by Quaker State is sponsored by Viagra. By KFC. Now get 10 great KFC tastes starting at 99 cents on the new KFC value menu. By Toyota. Moving forward. And by Sprint. Get NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile only from Sprint, only on the Now Network.
Jeff Gordon, your leader, by 3/4 of a second over Greg Biffle. We are 7 laps from halfway, and we have 21 of the 43 starters still on the lead lap. Battle for 7th place right here. Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards.
Well, of the two vehicles he raced yesterday, the Nationwide car and the truck, I never saw him out of shape at any point in time. I never saw two better handling vehicles.
Well, I've seen him out of shape in this race just a few laps ago.
Yeah, today, watch this.
Just kissed it coming off turn 2.
The wall actually wedged right there, and he could just slide her right in there.
Hey, you know, Mike, you mentioned we're about 6 laps from halfway. We have basically, as we're getting close to some green flag stops, David Stremme in the 12 car. We have 41 of the 43 cars still on the racetrack. Scott Riggs is back out there 9 laps down.
Now, in the last round of green flag pit stops, David Stremme was the first car to pit, and he is yet again, as this battle for 7th rages on.
Yeah, the Dodges are another one of the makes that when you look back at last year and the year before, they tend to get on the low side of fuel mileage, a lot like the Toyotas. It looks like the Chevrolets and the Fords get the best mileage.
Now, these two guys, Carl and Kyle here at the end of last night's race, Carl was leading the race, and Kyle put a little shove on him to take the lead away right at the end of the race. So, but obviously no harm, no foul, because they're racing each other very nicely and politely here.
I don't know, Darrell. I don't see a whole lot of give and take here. Do you?
Well, it could be just a little rivalry there. You know, Carl may be just trying to. What did Kyle tell little Wallace at Richmond? When you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Right.
I would remember that, I think.
Martin Truex, 1 lap down, makes his pit stop as we begin our 2nd consecutive round of green flag stops.
Carl Edwards going to win the battle this time in that 99 car. That will put him into the 7th position.
Elliott Sadler's in.
I think we'll be seeing about all the leaders within the next 3 to 5 laps on pit road for 4 tires and a full tank of Sunoco race fuel.
I tell you, Jeff Gordon has really looked steady out front here. He's run some real consistent lap times, and that car has been really good on this run.
Yeah, probably the only car I see right now that's keeping tempo with him would probably be Matt Kenseth in that 17 car, who's sitting back there in 3rd spot, about 3.5 seconds back.
There's Matt. Jimmy Johnson trying to run him down.
I think whatever changes they made to the 48, they will undo the next time in, because I think they hurt that car a little bit.
Matt Kenseth, a couple of laps away from his stop, Steve.
And Mike, he just had an interesting description of his car. He said that in the center, it's a little bit spongy. That's the only issue he's talking about right now, right in the center.
I'll take spongy over free any day.
Probably not as near as severe.
No.
And the stopwatch kind of backs it up.
I kind of like spongy.
I'm not sure what spongy means, though, unless he's just looking for more grip, which I don't think you ever find all the grip you're looking for.
I think what he's saying is it's not down in the racetrack as much as I'd like for it to be.
Jeff Burton is in, Sam Hornish, and here is Kurt Busch in front of Steve.
Mike, they basically want to undo the changes they made on the last stop. They're going to drop the track bar 2 rounds, of course, 4 tires for Kurt Busch. He had dropped to the 8th position after running in the top 5.
The 2 Hendrick cars, Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, have led all but 5 laps today. Any surprise to that?
No. Not really. They looked that good in practice. They looked that good in qualifying. Those cars have been on it the whole weekend.
Michael Waltrip getting serviced, and Clint Boyer is in front of Krista.
That's right. Clint Boyer's been fighting tight in center, loose off. Right now he says killing the center, still loose off, really loose off for Clint Boyer.
Reed Sorensen and Eric Almirola making pit stops. And here comes Kevin Harvick and Casey Kane onto pit road. There's Sorensen. Matt?
Harvick waved off an idea of maybe making a track bar adjustment. They're going to try to free this car up with an air pressure change this segment and see how big of a change that does change the 29 car. Meanwhile, Chad Knaus calling the 48 car into his box. Knaus's car tight earlier. The last run, it was actually free, especially on entry to turn 3. Chassis adjustment on both sides of the 48 car.
Kyle Busch down pit road, and Casey Mears locked the tires up coming in. Joey Logano's in as well, as is Brian Vickers. Dick?
Well, Kyle Busch's car is much better this round than it was in the last, so they are going to give him a little bit of service. Not major changes on that number 18 automobile, as one of the cans of fuel winds up on the back deck. Matty.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. is in, Dick. They're going to make a chassis adjustment for Jr. on both sides of the car. He said it rode great for a while, and then all of a sudden the right rear just came unhooked, Steve.
Steve.
Matt Kenseth on pit road. Now he said his car had gotten a little bit free at the end of the run. You just saw him clean the grill, the temperature, water temperature up to 235 degrees. 4 tires for Matt Kenseth. Jeff Gordon hits pit road.
Yeah, I knew when Matt Kenseth hit pit road that Jeff Gordon in that 24, he would not be far behind. You see Greg Biffle in the 16 following him down pit road.
Steve.
Mike listening to Greg Irwin bark the commands. They're going to go down on the track bar for Greg Biffle. Dick.
Jeff Gordon came into this race needing only 75 laps to have 20,000 career laps led, and it looks like he could well do it. They do have a wrench in the back deck of the car for the first time today. The car loose on entry, tight in the middle, loose off. Gordon wanted that changed. Krista with a 5.
For Mark Martin, it's going to be a track bar adjustment. That's because his car has improved this run, but it's still a bit loose. It actually would get tighter as the run went on. A track bar adjustment and tires and fuel for Mark Martin.
Like that 16 car, Greg Biffle, Greg Irwin led crew. They won the battle off pit road with that 24 car of Gordon.
Brian Vickers in now. I said he was in earlier. Actually, it was not. It was his teammate Scott Speed. So Vickers makes his stop, and that should pretty well cycle us through green flag pit stops.
Well, like that 16, man, when he came out of the pits and he got up on the back straightaway, he left Jeff Gordon in the dust.
Now we've now been under green for 81 consecutive laps, going all the way back to lap 46 on that second restart.
The new leader is the Ford Fusion of Greg Biffle. We're just past halfway, and 2 laps completed Auto Club Speedway in Southern California. Just past halfway. Greg Biffle is your leader over Jeff Gordon, and he got the lead on a fast green flag stop from his crew.
When your car's good, your crew's good, and I think they like what happened on pit road.
That's right. There'll be no $10,000 fine for this celebration.
No, sir. That's a great celebration.
Time for another question from Ask.com, the official search engine of NASCAR. There was a book called Stand On It, written by a fictional driver named Stroker Ace. Bill Neely and Bob Ottom wrote the book, and it was all the great stories of stock car racing that you couldn't tell because of who was involved, so you attributed them all to Stroker Ace, this fictional driver. Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham did the movie, and the question is, how many drivers in what was then the NASCAR Winston Cup Series had cameos in the movie? For the answer, go to Ask.com and enter the Ask.com NASCAR Challenge for a chance to win daily prizes and a trip to Talladega. Ask.com, official search engine of NASCAR.
I tried to get Fred Torkel to sponsor my car, but he already had a deal.
Yeah, Clyde Torkel's Chicken Pit.
Clyde Torkel
was the sponsor of Stroker's car.
Right.
Tell you what, we're looking at Jeff Gordon, that 24 car on the bottom of the racetrack running in second. Greg Biffle is really having to fight through lap cars. Now he got hemmed up behind Casey Kane in the 9, Sam Hornish Jr. in the 77, trying to stay on the lead lap, and that really pulled Jeff Gordon in that 24 up to his rear bumper.
Tell you the guy that he's hoping that back there that also hopes they'll hold him up for a little while is Jimmy Johnson. He has lost touch with these two guys up front here. Whoops, this is going to be close.
Thread the needle.
Y'all be careful now, you hear?
Now Michael Waltrip in the 55 car, he's trying to stay on the lead lap, but look at Gordon. He's going to go to the high side of Biffle, but he's going to get him behind Michael. Biffle will keep the lead.
Jeff needs to get back down on that apron. The Biff's got his car working to perfection right now. I think that he and Jeff Gordon are probably pretty equal to each other the way it's looking.
Jeff Gordon closing in on Greg Biffle, trying to take the lead. Let's let him crank it up for a while. Jeff Gordon is there, hounding Greg Biffle for the lead. He got right to Biffle's bumper, and then Greg managed to scoot away just a little bit.
I just believe right now, still with 112 laps to go on a long run and a short run for that matter, that's the two best race cars right there. Biffle in the 16, Gordon in the 24.
Yeah, one thing I've seen out of the 24 today, normally he's good on new tires and he kind of fades. Today, looks like he's got a car that's really good over the long run, which is going to pay off, looks like.
Lapping past Southern California native and off-road star Robbie Gordon, who's been a fixture, a regular in this series. And Robbie Gordon, one of, if not the last, driver owners in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series.
Made the swap to Toyota. Right now, Robbie is 2 laps down, back in the 34th position. We have 16 cars on the lead lap now with 1:11 to go.
Now, Jeremy Mayfield and Joe Nemechek own their own race teams, but we'll see if they run the full schedule. Robbie has for the past few years.
And there's some guys up here just in front of the leaders that, man, they better get going. Dale Jr., one of them, he's running 15th right now, and the leaders are coming.
You know, Darrell, I know as we headed into this 2009 season, when people, the media was talking about championship contenders for 2009, the 3 obvious choices, Jimmy Johnson going for 4 in a row, Carl Edwards trying to win his first, and Kyle Busch. But I just believe that Greg Biffle in that 16 car, when you look at the strides they made last year, they won the first 2 races of the chase. He not only was my dark horse in this 500-mile race today, he could be the dark horse in this championship.
Well, it sure looks that way. I thought, quite honestly, I thought they just got lucky in the chase when they won that first couple of races. But this team, under this man's leadership right here, has really turned a corner. They're a contender. There's no question.
Greg Irwin.
Caution is out, and rain is falling in turn 3. And that caution is great news for Montoya, Rudeman, Earnhardt, and Stremme, who will stay on the lead lap. And it looks like Michael Waltrip.
We just got to be careful. Every time we kind of tighten it up, it takes the speed out. But a little bit less than that would have been good.
Dale Jr. And it looks like Michael Waltrip will be the recipient of the free pass as the first car one lap down. Chad Knaus not looking too happy about this rain.
He looks concerned. I think he's worried about his race car. What am I going to do to it? Because it's definitely gotten off from what it was early in the race.
Yeah, they've been so good all weekend long. They started the race so strong, but it's like as this race got to go and they just lost the handle on it.
Now, we ran 95 consecutive green flag laps 5 times out of the 17 prior races here. We've had green flag runs of 100 laps or more. What's the concern down there in that 48 pit, Matt?
Mike, DW hit it perfectly. The concern for Knaus, he was seeing the trend. They were about a half second slower than the leader. Trying to get a long description from Jimmy about the car. He asked Jimmy, are you running the bottom early on new tires? And Jimmy said the car's just so tight, he can't run the bottom like he wants to. It's also a little free on exit. So they're looking at what game plan they're going to make on their next changes. Jimmy said the car felt much better this run, but Chad said, yeah, but we're not as fast. We're actually going the wrong way. We're getting slower.
And that's a concern, because those other two guys, Biffle and Gordon, have gotten faster, and they've gotten slower, and that's the problem.
Pit road will be open. Now, this is a light rain. It is not expected to be an extended rain. It's a very different situation than we had last Sunday in Daytona Beach. We are past halfway, but nobody right now is thinking that this light sprinkle is going to end this race. So likely there'll be takers on pit road.
But if I'm David Rudeman, Dale Earnhardt Jr., David Stremme, last car on the lead lap, why not stay out there and ride it out and just see? There's always that chance.
Steve?
Mike, Greg Biffle saying his 16 car is real good down in turns 1 and 2, but he over rotates a little bit down in turns 3 and 4, and he's fighting tight at the bottom of the racetrack. He gets a clean windshield and they make an air pressure adjustment, Matt.
The center of your screen, the 48 Jimmy Johnson, a tear off Ron Mallett, the car chief, and also a chassis adjustment, both wedge and track bar for Johnson, Dick.
And Jeff Gordon is in for 4 tires. They are indeed predicting that the rain is going to stop. We're going to get this whole race in. Gordon likes the behavior of the cars, so no major adjustments to it. Just the 4 tires. He said, wow, the big race off pit road.
Matt Kenseth appears to win that one.
Which is not unusual either when he hits pit road. And look at there, 3 positions gained.
That makes me nervous.
Why?
Because what did he do last week?
He got out front and it rained hard. Don't go there, Darryl.
Okay. That was last week.
Presented by Quaker State is sponsored by Amp Energy. Amp up. Welcome you back live, NASCAR and Fox, in time for an AT&T race break. Some light rain falling here. Juan Pablo Montoya had stayed out for a lap, but pitted, so Matt Kenseth would grab his first lead of the day, coming off the rain-shortened Daytona 500 win. Just a quick recap here, as we had some caution laps because of rain. Jimmy Johnson here battling Kurt Busch. Jimmy Johnson leading most of the way early. Jeff Gordon, keep an eye here as he scrapes the wall, but undeterred, battles his own teammate. Jimmy Johnson for the lead. Johnson has led 74 laps. Jeff Gordon 49 laps. Those are your lap leaders so far. But Greg Biffle taking the lead off pit road. His pit crew helping out. And we may not have Hugh Jackman here, but we do have a Jackman celebrating as Greg Biffle and Matt Kenseth running 1-2. Jeff Gordon third. As we stand at the moment, our third caution. We just had our longest stretch, 96 laps of green flag racing in between the yellow.
I just want to tell you one thing, that I taught Rodney Fetters everything he knows. He was a jackman right there doing the
you were once a jackman.
Yes, I was right there. But what we're seeing right now, I think, really is a classic battle of trying to chase the racetrack. Early on, it was the 48 car. He clearly had the fastest race car there. Jeff Gordon's car kind of started coming in. He kept driving. Remember I talked about looking for a groove at the very beginning of our pre-race show? That's what he's been doing. He's been hunting around. He finally found out you can run on the apron here at this racetrack. He took the lead, and right now I think he's poised to really get after that 16 car because he knows we're getting closer to the end.
Yeah, we may be racing the rain as there's your Daytona 500 winner, Matt Kenseth.
Yeah, when you look at that front right there, that's a windshield tear off right there that's gotten around one of the struts in the front nose.
That was a baggie from the freeway. I thought it was Norm Benning. It was Annette Benning going to an Oscar party, I think. All right, what about the adjustments? Carl Edwards, they had to make adjustments. Greg Biffle too, and Steve Burns has done a nice job tracking the adjustments that Biffle has made all day.
Oh, yeah, because he talked about how bad fast his car was from yesterday's practice, and all of a sudden they dropped the green flag at the beginning of the race, and all he had was a bad race car. But they didn't give up, and that's the main thing. You've got to keep working on your adjustments, and hopefully your driver, again, he'll keep working on his line until he finds a place where his car is comfortable. And that's part of it when you come to California. You have to be working on where you're going to make your car work at. All right, how are you going to get it turned?
And we've seen those long green runs here. Now, what about racing the rain that we saw? It shouldn't be heavy, but it's something that the drivers, the crew chiefs are thinking about.
I think from here on out, you've got to be cautious to the fact that it could come back and it could end the race. So when I say cautious about it, you've got to get up on that steering wheel. I mean, clouds look like they're lifting behind us. It looks like it's going to clear out. I believe we're going to complete the race. But for these guys, I think you got to run like the next lap, maybe the last. 7
leaders and 11 different lead changes from your AT&T phone. Text the car number for the pit crew you think will be the fastest and most valuable in the race today at 2258. The AT&T Fastest Pit Crew of the Year award delivered by AT&T, the nation's fastest 3G network. We're live in Fontana, California, about 60 miles east of the Oscars, and the Daytona 500 winner Matt Kenseth is currently your leader here. And we'll
101 laps to go this time by. Here's your Quaker State race summary. Matt Kenseth has picked up the lead on that pit stop. He's one of 7. Make that now 8 different leaders, 12 lead changes, and 18 cars will take the restart green flag on the lead lap. This is our 3rd caution flag, and they have all been for rain showers today.
Next week we go to Vegas. Now, for me, and Stevie's going to go with me, my wife, it's the most fun weekend I think we have. You get to go to all those beautiful hotels and the shows. I mean, the shows are incredible. The Beatles show Love we're going to, and then we're going to go see the Jersey Boys. And those are just neat shows and fun to go to. What are you going to do?
Just the facility. Linda's coming out there. We're going to hang out for a few days and going to take in a few shows. Go down to Michael Gaughan, Brendan Gaughan's place, South Point. But just the racetrack, what they've done with that place, Darrell, with the neon garage where the fans can almost get above the garages. And when they put the progressive banking at that racetrack 3 years ago, great racing there that we've had the last few years.
Going to have another lap or so of caution before we go back to green. We're going to get 1 to go next time by, we're told. How about a little more from Darrell's sit down yesterday with Dale Earnhardt Jr. as Jr. talks about his position as far and away the sport's most popular driver.
Most of the guys that have known me since I was a kid and know who I am respect me. The guys that don't know me, that have come into the sport in the last couple of years, that are a lot younger than me, probably don't. They don't understand what the popularity is all about because the popularity and the results don't match up. So, that's just the way it is.
I could have, the thing about that interview and him, I could have sat there all afternoon with him, because you ask him a question and he speaks from his heart. He tells you what he thinks. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, and he is a great guy to talk to. That if you want to know something, just ask him. He'll tell you.
May not be what you want to hear, but it'll be what he feels.
Well, it's like Mark Twain said, if you always tell the truth, you never have to remember anything.
That's right.
We're getting ready to go back to green. Matt Kenseth, the Daytona 500 winner, is the race leader. His Roush Fenway Ford teammate, Greg Biffle, running in 2nd place, the number 16. Jeff Gordon for Rick Hendrick in 3rd. Kurt Busch for Roger Penske, the man whose company built this racetrack, in 4th. And Hendrick Motorsports' Jimmy Johnson in 5th. Next in 6th, the number 18, Kyle Busch, who already has 2 big wins this weekend, and then last year's winner of this race, the 99 Carl Edwards.
This is the first restart that we will have where we've got all those lap down cars on the inside. Remember, the first 2 restarts, it was single file. So this is where it's going to get a little bit interesting. Cars trying to get back on the lead lap or be the first car 1 lap down.
Yeah, this is not like the start of the race where everybody's being real cautious. This is like the start of the last 10 laps, and you're trying to get a lap back.
And the first of those lap down cars, past winner here, Casey Kane, the number 9. Green flag.
But what I love about a 500-mile race, whoa.
How about that?
They just took it right to the bottom, and look at Jeff.
Look at the run. Jeff Gordon in that 24 car got through the middle of 1 and 2. He pulls to the high side of Biffle. He's looking for that second spot. But it's like Greg Biffle said, "Dadgummit, you beat me off pit road. I'm going to beat you back on the racetrack," about Kenseth in the 17.
But this is like a reload. I mean, everybody got to work on their cars, and now their cars are better. And, man, we're going to see some guys that we haven't talked about all day, like Matt Kenseth leading the race.
Steve.
Mike, just before the pit stop, Matt Kenseth said to his crew, "I can't hustle it like I was in the center. I was really making hay." So they made a track bar adjustment and an air pressure adjustment after the pit stop. When he took the lead, he said, "I'm just out cruising around being spoiled by my pit crew as usual."
Darrell, on these restarts, everybody's got new tires. Everybody's back up on the wheel. Everybody's Superman.
That's right. And you got to, this is when you got to capitalize on those 4 new tires and trying to get by people that maybe you'll have to race later in the day. I would also just say that don't look now, but I think whatever they did to the 48 car, they've undone. And he's looking pretty racy again, too.
And would that come as a big surprise?
Not at all. 500-mile races are like plays, though. You have the opening act. Then you got the middle in there where you kind of establish a story. And then you have the end of the race, or the end of the show, where you find out who the superstars are going to be.
Dick Bergman.
Well, last fall, the 48 car absolutely dominated here. Won the pole, won the race, led all but 22 laps in that event with a setup that was a little bit different. And Jeff Gordon had the option of using that setup, but chose not to because he had no opportunity to test it. So you might have thought, given Jimmie Johnson's success and what happened to Gordon, he finished 15th and led just 2, he would have tried that setup this time around. He did not. Johnson's setup, Gordon's setup, 2 very different setups for the racetrack this afternoon. Right now, it looks as if what Gordon's got is the better of the 2.
Well, I'm going to tell you what.
Don't look now, Dick.
Because right now, Jeff Gordon has a rear view mirror full of his teammate, Jimmie Johnson, at that 48. Now he's going to have to look out the left window probably to see him.
Well, I just know that last time in that they did something to the 48 car that he just did not like. And I think they've undone it, and that now the car is back like it was beginning of the race.
But he cannot complete the pass on Jeff Gordon. Not this time. And Biffle's right there. Race leader Matt Kenseth and Greg Biffle in the 16 just ran their personal best lap of this race.
Well, they've got those fresh tires. This racetrack is really cooling down. Matt Kenseth's out there. He's not having to fight any other traffic. There's no question this is where they're going to run their faster laps.
And one of the things that this car has proven over and over again, the guy out front does what the 17's doing. Drives off and leaves the other guys.
Well, even in Southern California, clean air is good air.
That's exactly right. This car loves it.
Second place. Johnson wants it, and Gordon gives it up to his teammate.
Well, Jimmie Johnson couldn't do it on the low side, so he moved to the high side and was able to complete the pass, but Gordon's fighting back now on the bottom.
Well, the bottom's the shortest way, but the top's the fastest way.
And Johnson prevails. Here's Matt.
And Jimmie Johnson on the last stop said the car, the forward bite was so much better. It just wouldn't roll to center well. After some changes, now he's saying the car is just so free, he can barely hold on to it.
Free is fast.
For a while.
Well, that's what Chad was trying to tell him. We're going the wrong way. We tried to tighten it up and slowed it down.
Exactly, and because they were too tight early, and it's only going to get tighter. Now I think they got it close to where they want it.
But now look who has been leading all weekend in the truck race and the nationwide race, and who presently is lurking in 6th place. That would be the younger of the Busch brothers, Kyle.
I just think he's been pacing himself. I think you only got so much. I don't care how young you are. You only got so much gas in the tank. You better save a little of it.
Well, he made history yesterday. You see it right there. Won 2 major Touring Series races on the same day. He's trying to become the first driver to win 3 Touring Series at 1 racetrack in 1 weekend.
He's our leading Toyota top performer, running at 6th. He started 10th. Denny Hamlin started 17th. He is in 11th, and Rudeman 15th.
You know, Darrell, we've only had 3 cautions, and they've all been for rain. And what's interesting, with that pit stop everybody made on lap 140. 3, it's still a 2-stop race. They cannot make it to the end on 1 stop.
I just think it's fascinating how no matter who gets in front, Matt Kenseth at this time, that he can just pull away from everybody else. Although it looks like Jimmy Johnson has really got his car tuned up now, and he's coming.
We got action all over the racetrack with in-car camera shots.
I just think this car is so sensitive. It's a really fickle race car. A minor little adjustment will take you right out of the game, but a minor adjustment will put you right back in the game, and that's hard. That's the hard thing about sitting on that pit box.
One of those onboard views, the one in the upper left corner, was that 6 car right there. Going through the frame, David Reagan. Now, he was a top 10 car earlier, but he's now fallen off the lead lap. Krista?
Yeah, Mike dropped back at first because he scraped the wall a little bit. Right now he's having to drop back because he's overheating. They think they have some paper on the grill, so he just needs to drop back and try to cool things off. David just came on the radio as I've been talking and said, yeah, Jimmy, she's starting to come back now.
But he hurt that car a lot more than I think they realized when he slammed the wall going into turn 3. That car took a lot of damage, has a lot of damage to it.
But you know, all day long, Krista and the guys on pit road, they've been reporting with a lot of these cars flirting with overheating. This place is notorious, a lot like Michigan, about getting debris on that grill opening. And remember, these guys run a lot of tape on the front end anyhow for downforce and drag reduction. You don't have a big margin of an error if a hot dog wrapper or something gets on that grill opening.
I think it's a year or so ago, what they call it, the hot dog wrapper 500, because everybody had them on the grill.
17 cars are on the lead lap. And in that last round of pit stops, Matt, it looks like they've improved Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s car.
A wedge and air pressure adjustment, Mike, has seemed to really get the feel that Dale Earnhardt Jr. is looking for. He, though, like so many others, are saying the car now seems to be going more and more to the free side. Another concern, a lot of the spotters warning their drivers rain could be coming back in the area, so they are trying to get up on the wheel.
But Darrell, you mentioned it, that seems to be the tendency of this car and maybe even this racetrack to get a little bit looser as they go.
Let's get amped up and go for a ride with Dale Jr.
Let's see how he looks in there. He's got a pretty good handful of wheel, so that means the car might be a little tight. Let's see how he looks going down into turn 1 here. Puts those hands over on the left side of the steering wheel, gives a nice hard tug on it. I think that car might be handling pretty well. Looks a little tight, but Junior always cranks the wheel hard left like that. He likes to be able to crank on it. Relaxes. See how he gets his hands all nice and relaxed. Kind of takes a deep breath. Heads down the straightaway. Nice. Coming up on the corner. Loads up on that left side. Got both hands pulling down on the wheel. Car actually looks like it's handling pretty good to me.
He doesn't look that busy in there.
No, he doesn't.
However, his lap times are about half a second off of what leader Matt Kenseth is running.
Yeah, if I was looking at that and I was critiquing it and saying, what do we need to do to the car? Looks like it's a little too tight. Got a lot of wheel in it.
Matt Kenseth has company. Jimmy Johnson is coming for the lead. 87 laps to go in the Auto Club 500 presented by Quaker State. You're watching NASCAR on Fox.
Quaker State is sponsored by UPS, official delivery company of NASCAR, and proud sponsors of David Reagan and the number 6 Ford Fusion.
336 of 500 miles complete, and reliability is beginning to fade on a couple of cars here.
Sounds like it's shake, rattle, and blow right now, because we've heard several different cars starting to report down on a cylinder, 88, Dale Jr. being one of them.
Well, that's not surprising. One of the first things Jeff Hammond said when we came on the air today with the pre-race show, this is a engine builder's nightmare. Because when you look at Dale Earnhardt Jr., yeah, he's run 169 laps in this race, but he ran 70 laps in practice. And we're also hearing at Jimmy Johnson, you can see him right here in the 48 car, that he's slowing down. And Krista, maybe an outbreak here. Mark Martin in the 5.
Caution is out. Raining again. And let's check with Krista. I mean, 3 Hendrick cars with engine trouble at the same time.
Well, Larry, Mike DW, Mark Martin came on the radio and said, we may be out west, but the engine is heading south. He said when pit road, but with the rain coming, they want to stay out. Mark said valve cover come off. Matt?
The update on the 48 of Johnson, he said the car popped out of gear, put it back into fourth gear. Dale Jr., they've told him to look at the different switches. He said he has done that. That's when they told him the 5 of Martin has a similar problem.
Now, Jimmy Johnson popping out of gear, that happened to Dale Earnhardt Jr. twice, once in each of the practice sessions.
Earnhardt Jr. just going by. You can tell he's definitely in trouble.
Take your word for it, it's the film. Yeah.
So with 2 of the Hendrick cars for sure sounding like that they have engine issues, you know that Jeff Gordon, they're certainly going to be concerned in his camp, and not to mention Tony Stewart and Ryan Newman, because remember they have Hendrick engines as well in that 14 and 39 car.
Even though there's Chevrolet, Fords, Dodges, and Toyotas, there are a lot of common pieces, or at least common suppliers in all of these engines. And the camshaft makers, everybody might run a different design camshaft, but it's built by the same company, rock arms, so on and so forth.
Was Matt Kenseth pushing the pace car? Oh, or was he getting the debris that might have been on his grill off
And it's
there?
exactly, you saw it fly away because that changed the whole pressure on that front end, and rain or not, here they come to pit road. Steve.
Well, Larry Mack, that's exactly what he's trying to do.
Ranch, then I later talked to him, and he told me that what the rent was, and I stated that was too high. A couple of days later, he called me back and told me I should come take a look at it because it was really nice. I did. I came over, took a look.
We just made it, Mommy. Yes, Junior.
Okay. Sponsored by AT&T. Your world delivered. By Vault. Drinks like a soda, kicks like an energy drink. Vault, get to it. By Aflac. Ask about it at work. And by Lowe's. For all your home improvement needs, Lowe's. Let's build something together.
Fourth caution of the race here in Southern California. Uncharacteristically, all 4 of them have been for light rain showers in different parts of the racetrack. Now 6 drivers on the lead lap chose not to pit during this caution flag, led by Tony Stewart and Juan Pablo Montoya. Dale Earnhardt Jr. came in for a change of spark plug wires, went back on track, reported that did not help his ailing engine. Now last year in the 2 races at Auto Club Speedway, there were no engine failures in either race.
I don't remember. We raced here on Monday last year. I think it was a pretty nice day, but this cool air, the cool track temperature, cool air, the engines, they just make more power, which means that they have more of a chance of something going wrong with them.
Now, Mike, one of the cars that stayed out, Mark Martin in his 5 car, there's about 40 cars that want to get back to racing. There's a couple of cars that don't. One of them would be Tony Stewart, who's leading this thing. But Jeff Hammond, Mark Martin in the 5 car, engine situation there, I think he's praying for rain too.
I'm pretty sure he is right now, Larry, because we talked about this in the pre-race. You got to take care of these engines because it is a 500-mile marathon turning over 9,000 RPM. And a lot of times what gets you in trouble has to do with this valve train. This is the rocker arm. It moves the valve up and down. This is the spring that keeps the tension on that valve. And if you'll look here very closely, when this piston comes up, this is the intake valve. Look how close they get together. Now, Jimmy Johnson talked about his transmission jumping out of gear. If he over revs the engine, all of a sudden that piston and valve, they come up and they touch one another. Well, I could easily warp this valve or break it off. And that might be what has happened to some of these cars late in the day here. If they've had this kind of problem, this could be the culprit. These valve springs or this valve here itself touching the top of the piston. In any case, what this does mean for a lot of guys, if they've got this problem, they're not going to finish this race. And if they do, they definitely will not be a factor as far as finishing well.
Well, when the pushrod V8 debuted in 1949 at Oldsmobile and Cadillac, the service limit RPM was under 4,000. And now we're turning to more than twice as much, Jeff. A lot of things have been improved since then, obviously, to enable that. But it's the same basic engine architecture.
Well, what happens is the head of that valve, if it touches a piston, it will tweak the valve. The piston will hit it and break it off. It'll knock a hole in the piston, and that's where the smoke comes from.
Matt, what are they doing to Dale Jr.'s car?
Mike, back in again. The last stop, they used a temperature gun trying to see which cylinder was cold. They couldn't figure it out because it was all the same temperature. This time in, they used a crayon like the tire specialists used to mark the tires, because that way they could see which cylinder was melting the crayon and which cylinder they'd lost, which didn't.
Well, you can hear it's not running right.
Jeff can explain.
Well, what Matt's talking about, when you go over and raise the hood on the car, they take the heat gun. What they're doing, they're putting it on these exhaust pipes. And if there's not any fuel getting in that cylinder to be ignited by the spark plug, this exhaust tube will be cooler than the rest of them. So they know exactly which one they're looking at, whether it may be a problem with the plug wire or what may be going on. So that's what these teams are looking for, is trying to identify which one of these cylinders is the culprit as far as the problem's concerned. That heat gun can tell you that by looking at the exhaust tube temperature.
They're giving the field, are they giving one to go?
Yes, they are.
Yes, and that's why Stewart, Montoya, and some of these other drivers have come to pit road, because we're looking to go green next time.
Yeah, but the one to go, but the caution lights are still on the pace car, so that maybe that I can't see the flagman.
Excuse me,
it was two, I think it's 2 to go.
It's
yeah,
2 to go.
It is, because.
But that's an indication of the teams that we are going back to green. So pit stops for those drivers who did not come in earlier. Dale Jr. is back in again. We're getting ready to restart, so don't go away.
I think that was an illegal bat, to tell you the truth.
Green flag, and we restart with Matt Kenseth out front. Mark Martin and the rest of those lead lap cars made pit stops with the 1 to go. So it's Kenseth, Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Kurt and Kyle Busch, Greg Biffle, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick.
Now with that caution and all those pit stops, we are now into a one-stop race here. It's 73 laps to go.
3 wide.
Kyle Busch.
Brothers.
That 18 just keeps creeping toward the front, boys.
All night long.
Just methodically been working his way up there.
Nick Bertrand.
Well, I'll tell you why, because that pit crew for the 18 car has done their homework. They did not start this race with a car they were happy with. The chassis wasn't performing as well as Kyle Busch had wanted, but on every pit stop, they have made minor adjustments, and they've crept up on it, and now they're real close for Kyle Busch.
Well, they're getting ready to go 3 wide and get down the back.
Fighting back on the high side in the 2 car, and Greg Biffle and the 16's following him.
Mark Martin up in smoke.
Got one more cup.
And I think we knew that that was inevitably going to happen.
Yeah.
Clint Boyer, the 33, is a lap down as Martin coasts toward the garage.
See Mark on the bottom down here.
Number 5.
And there she goes. That valve that Jeff was showing us, it quit going up and down. It just went down.
Greg Biffle comes back into play in the 16.
He wants to be the rock between 2 hard places.
Darrell, Larry and I talked in pre-race, and I think Biffle, I think that's the car to beat here tonight.